According to the European Commission, microcredential is a record of learning outcomes that a learner has acquired following a volume of learning. And these learning outcomes have been accessed against a transparent and clearly defined standards. And courses leading to microcredentials are designed to provide learners with specific knowledge, skills, competencies that respond to societal, personal, cultural, and labor market needs. So from this brief definition, I would want to draw your attention to 5 specific objectives of learning. Our university is capable to provide learning. It is an unavoidable fact that the university is perhaps one of the oldest societal institutions in our civilization and has always been tasked and is rooted in what we call the domain of disciplinary knowledge. If those of you who are familiar with the work of the seminal work of Michael Gibbons and many other sort of experts of knowledge production, in their book that was published in 1994, talks about the new production of knowledge. In that book, it clearly suggested that there is more than one mode of knowledge, that is both mode 1 and mode 2. Those of you who are familiar with that context. And within that book, it clearly outlines that the university is still very much confined to the mode 1 kind of knowledge, which is the disciplinary knowledge. And therefore, in a nutshell, we can say that universities continue to generate new knowledge and expand existing knowledge through research, disseminates knowledge through teaching and other form of education, as well as to document this knowledge into different forms of repository. But what is important to note is that the university is still very much centered on disciplinary knowledge and partial to its application of this knowledge within that context. So that is the background that we should have in mind when we think about the role of the university in this discussion about microcredential, just on the part of knowledge. So unlike academic and disciplinary knowledge, where one goes to the university, learn the knowledge and try to apply it into different contexts, the development of skills is actually very much context-based. Skills, as we define, is knowing how to do certain things, right? The late Professor Michael Iraut, who is a renowned professor of education who specializes in professional and workplace learning, used the example of reasoning skills as a sort of skills, and what he distinguished between the level of between someone who has mastered the skill as well as someone who is novice is based on the ability of the person to assess the situation. So in other words, that the development of skills is very context specific. And similarly, in the definition of competencies is also rooted to the concept of job context for development of a form of capabilities. And that also closely relates to the whole preparation of employment and preparing one with the skills, the competencies to acquire and to do a certain kind of job. Yet the elephant in the room, as we always talk about in the context of university and higher education, is the university the best place to develop skills and job-specific competencies, and as well as is it best positioned to prepare students for employment. So if we are not convinced with that answer, then that question about is microcredential the right place to instill this within the context of higher education and the university. Lifelong education or lifelong learning is the timeless paradigm of learning. So one is expected to from cradle to grave kind of approach to learning, but we also have to realize that the university education has been very rigidly framed around the concept of time. So you go to the university, you spend 3 years, you get your credentials, you leave the university. So it's very time bound. And this, to some extent, is contradictory to the whole idea of lifelong learning. On the other hand, life-wide learning is a paradigm of learning that is beyond a specific boundary of a learning program, right? But we also got to recognize some of the limitation within the context of a university is that the university education continues to be structured around an imagined disciplinary boundary, and is many different forms of programs. And therefore, what is important for us to recognize is that lifelong learning and life-wide learning are highly individualistic and is driven by personal interests and needs. That is fundamentally relates to the whole discussion about micro-credential. And therefore, that leaves us with the question, can the current structure of university education accommodate such flexible learning experience, and can the university continues whereby the university has continued to struggle to provide a personalized form of education? And as we begin to reimagine how should we move forward with micro-credentials in the context of higher education, we need to recognize some of this structural and also some of the rigidity within that context. We also got to recognize the limitation of what the university can do and some of the barriers within that context. We got to recognize that when it comes to, for example, employment preparation, job-specific competencies, the university may not be the best place because of the structure that it was built, the expertise that was brought in. I mean, basic prerequisite to work in a university is you need a discipline-based research training doctorate to become a lecturer in the university. And therefore, there is very little to, or almost no room to consider other non-academic proficiencies in the hiring of educators within the universities. So it's very important for us to also bring in different kind of stakeholders who can provide flexible and adventurous avenue to explore new forms and of learning within this micro-credential. And therefore, there's a need as we move forward, as we reimagine higher education through micro-credential, is the need concerted and consolidated effort of multiple kind of institutions coming together, not only the universities, but also including polytechnics, vocational institutions, businesses, corporations coming together, and also the learners themselves. Many other big corporations such as IBM, Microsoft has also developed a series of micro-credentials within their own context, and this should all be brought into the discussion, and not only recognizing and confining ourselves to the discussion of universities within this context. And I would end here by saying that after all, life is the best teacher for learning, and I would add that learning is not bounded by an institution that we all call the university as the only place where we can learn. Learning in the micro-credential sense should be open and should be flexible to accommodate different kinds of learning.
And I like the question that Dr. Wan threw just now. Can university do micro-credentials? If not, who else, right? So we are the who else, right? So DSG is the other industrial partner, I would say, that help universities to pinpoint what are the courses, what are the experiences, what are the things that we can do. We started back in 2010. Yeah, when I was doing my PhD in Nottingham, UK. And during those time, there were not many people. You know, Facebook is also very new, and there are not many people who are connected online. So me and few other friends thought, you know, what's the best place to connect all these people, you know, and especially we want to do it casually, no formal, you know, no formal platform. So we chose Facebook as one of our starting point. So starting with only 100 members in 2010, now we have grown up to 98,000 members. And most of them, I would say 80% are Malaysian, yeah, academics in Malaysia. And almost everyone have the similar problems, similar challenges to get connection, to get network, to find universities, to find supervisors. So what we've been doing is connecting all the resources together. And come and join us if you're on Facebook. So just type Doctorate Support Group and you'll find the group with this huge number. And what we want to do is we want to be a one-stop center to connect postgraduates, yeah, to all the products and services related to the PhD journey. Okay. Our definition of micro-credentials Microcredentials these are smaller and shorter programs of study. So we have, for example, courses of how to introduction to use Mendeley, introduction to use EndNote, right? So these are smaller, shorter programs so that the postgraduates are able to understand the various skills and competencies that they have to achieve before they graduate. And these specific skills are also narrowly focused. So we can then identify, okay, what am I lacking? What do I need to learn? Because there are actually a lot of things that you need to manage while you are doing your postgraduate study. And this is done also from my own experience of feeling too overwhelmed, with so many tasks during my 3 or 4 years of PhD study. And by the end of the courses, the students will earn a digital badge and of course some official credit. And we are currently working on with our partners in our universities in Malaysia to award this digital badge. And thinking about the next step where we are also moving into the metaverse direction, where everything can be done virtually and online. And we are so proud to say that we are one of the group identified by Facebook, by Meta team, to be involved in metaverse in education. So that's where we are going at the moment. So some examples of micro-credential courses that we have in Doctorate support group are specific software for data analysis. So those who are doing quantitative method, those who are doing qualitative method or mixed method, they will have specific software, to deal with data analysis. So we are going to identify, and then we are going to prepare. And another example of foreign languages to learn. We have a lot of foreign languages institute that are keen to work with us, simply so that we can say, hey, I've graduated with PhD, but I also have other skills. For example, I can speak Korean, I can understand Korean, which I think add value, to your postgraduate that you have. All right, thank you, Ling. Next one. Right, so these are samples of the courses that we have identified. For example, the first one, the software for thesis writing and data analysis. We are currently working with 30 partners all over the world, and most of these software founders are based in the UK and Europe. So we work with Scholarly team in London, we work with Rev and Write, Coolbot, Grammarly, Instatext, and all this, and we are going to come up with a short program for the members to attend and then get certified. So for example, if I graduated and say, hey, I can use SPSS very confidently, so that we add to my credential that I can add. I can use Atlas TI, and this is my certification. I can then show and say, hey, you can employ me as a research assistant or even postdoctoral later on, right? So we are currently doing this. For the method, we are having quantitative, qualitative, and mixed method, and different techniques to analyze data. All these are done already in university, but there are no specific, how I would say, there are no specific credential or no specific courses. When you enroll yourself in a PhD or a master program, you simply go and attend research method class. That's it. But in research method class, there are various skills that you can learn, and we believe that micro-credentials are the best way to identify what are the skills that you have learned, and then you can have a row of badges to show. So actually, I learned this when I was working with Microsoft Malaysia. We are doing micro-credential for teachers who want to be certified to say that they know how to use technology. You have to know how to write in journals. You have to identify all the ranking in journals, right? Q1, Q2, and you have to know academic writing in journals as well. And we are moving into the area of visibility for researchers, whereby a lot of researchers do not know how to put themselves forward, meaning, hey, this is my area, this is what I'm good at, but how do I show? So the vision is to be one-stop center for postgraduate needs. And so currently now we have a physical space in Jalan Ampang, which is so near KLCC. So Dr. Wan, if you are ever visiting Malaysia, I'll invite you to our space. And of course, we have the online space, which is the Facebook group, closed group. The reason why it has to be closed is because we want all the information to be safely guarded inside the group, right? And there are a lot of students who say that, hey, I feel so comfortable in the closed group because nobody else can read except for, the private members. So we remain closed group for the benefit of the members. And then the next step will be, we are going to have our own metaverse space in Facebook, hopefully by next year. Yeah. So the way forward is we're going to have mentorship. So we need lots of thesis coaches, thesis experts, professors and doctors who are already inside DSG, and we are coming up with our own online academy, which is doctoratesupport.com. So that's where we put all the courses, and we've got our marketplace as well to connect researchers to any resources that they need. And yeah, we've got some fund already from Facebook, and now we are currently moving towards that. Achieving a lot of support, from university partners. So I believe that's it, Ling. Yeah. So this is my contact email and number. Come to the SG if ever you have any education resources, or if ever you need any partners to work with in Malaysia. We are open for any collaboration.
And the reality really here is the debate, right? That while micro-credentials has its place and relevance and is very timely, but the challenge pushback still is that how acceptable is that in the commonplace, in the employment? I think that is a very difficult part to argue for, because there isn't still a critical mass or a standard benchmark to kind of assess the validity and reliability of micro-credentials, because it's still, after all, given by organizations or institutes and so on.
So the convenient answer that most systems goes to the established formal institutions like the universities, right? Because it already has a structure, it already has a sort of system to document credentials in that sense. Moving forward, I guess the bigger challenge at the system level is looking at institutionalizing a structure whereby some of these credentials can be recorded. So the most up-to-date initiative that I've recently heard from a micro-credential conference in Bangkok just last month is, I think one of the most advanced mover of this is in Europe, and more specifically in Ireland, that they have begun to develop a national register where you can actually submit micro-credentials that you have done over the course into a national system. The other direction in which the recognition can work is through employers and through groups of employers within the same area. I think the more innovative innovations relating to micro-credentials can be seen in the IT industry. So there's a lot of innovative approaches to offering of micro-credentials courses within the IT industry, and that recognition seems to be much more easier, and the recording and the transfer of that credentials within the IT industry is much easier in that sense. But again, it varies from industry to industry, and I guess also the more established companies like IBM and all that has a very comprehensive sort of micro-credential system within their own.
That we are promoting the conversation. We are saying that why micro-credential, why now? It has been forever. I've started my experience with micro-credential back then when I started courses with Open Learning, Coursera. There are many platforms out there. But however, until and even when government officials recognize, the achievement of these, and it will be made official for us to accept, especially in university, it will not matter much. I mean, there's so much that we industry partners can do. However, towards the end, it has to be the government, it has to be the universities that accept the credentials of micro courses. And I will always mention this to our members. If we can finish things earlier, why wait until 4 years to finish your degree, right? This is happening right now in Malaysia, where youngsters, undergraduate students, who can be so fast, completing their courses. They don't have to wait until 4 years. That is a very outdated mode of education already. You can simply go to Google, go to Microsoft, get certified, and then you can say, hey, I can build websites now. I can do mobile apps now. By being certified. Why wait until 4 or 5 years to graduate, which is going to drag your years into a career, right? Into working. So that's my point. So all of us have to keep talking about this until universities or whoever in power realize that mode of education is not the same anymore. I mean, you can't have that same, same way of learning like your parents do, or even during my time, when we had to go through all bits and pieces of 4 or 5 years of undergraduate degree. But now, no, everybody can actually be certified, especially online, right?
A lot of what we look at micro-credentials is just in time. But from an academia background, I mean, why I always tell people, when you are a professor, you profess something because you have deep knowledge in that. And that is just that is timeless learning. That is disciplinary learning. But what micro-credentials does not offer is that dimension of disciplinary thinking, right? It just gives you the skill sets. It just offers you that know-how enough to perform a skill or a task, right? And a lot of that comes along the way. So this debate or dilemma is very real for me. I can't swing either way, because at one hand I want to save time, I want to save money, but on the other hand, I think there's value in deep learning. But
I'm wondering to know, like, how our students should utilize micro credentials, and what kind of credentials could be beneficial.
Got kids who have graduated from university and then don't know where to go, right? Okay, so from my own experience with industrial partners, for example, with Microsoft or Google, right? They do offer MC courses where you can take small bite pieces of courses online, and then you get certification, right? You get certificate. For me, first of all, you have to identify what is it that you are passionate about, right? What is it that you want to do for the maybe 4 or 5 years of your life? And then with that in mind, then you can actually design your own learning online. So the number one thing is actually very difficult to find, which is what can I do almost 24 hours a day? So that will then answer, okay, I'm going to take courses based on these skills or these passion that I have. So that's number one. And then go and Google. A lot of these platforms normally give free courses. If you don't need a certificate, you can learn for free. However, if you want the certificate, then you pay a very minimal amount of USD. So for example, Coursera, check out Coursera, check out Open Learning. Simply Google micro-credential courses online.
What is important in this is that the learner must take charge. Why someone decides to pursue a certain credential or micro-credential or course. Without a doubt, if you want to go deep into a specific knowledge development, the university is still the place. You cannot replace that prolonged engagement with the knowledge that you have in the university to develop deep learning of a certain body of knowledge. I mean, you can read all the books by yourself. You can have different courses, but the university, when it comes to knowledge acquisition, there is still a structure. There is still a way in which one's developed that kind of deep learning of a specific subjects. So, but we got to also at the same time recognizes that the individual needs to learn can vary beyond just one particular subject and one direction. So understanding your needs, for example, if I'm in the university currently studying economics, right, there are definitely other skills and competencies that I would need as a sort of preparation or add-on to the economics body of knowledge that I'm learning in the university. And this is where micro-credential can come in to provide the additional to widen the spread of skills and knowledge that one can. And my argument is that this should not be done in the context of the university. We should be more innovative to explore where is best for someone to learn skills and competencies relating to employment, where the university is perhaps not the best place to do that. So that discussion as we imagine micro-credential is that we need to recognize what are the limitations of the existing institution. Many of them still has its own function and roles, but we need to be more courageous to explore other modes as well on other sort of forms of skills and credentials. But ultimately, I think the very important point that we need to bear in mind is that micro-credential should cater for the individual learner, and every individual is different.
Like today is the first day in my grad school, so it's like so inspiring to hear both of your advice. I think it's so beneficial, and thanks a lot. Sharing is caring. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your experience.